I know you're not a big fan of the Black Lives Matter movement because you put out a video titled 7 Reasons Why the Black Lives Matter Sucks.
And within, I would say, 5 minutes, I had my hat ripped off.
Wow.
I was wrestling on the ground for my hat with this like fat.
So
That's it.
on Ignorance, you had a video titled Trans So do you like get off on seeing people's reactions to your statements, your beliefs, but also the language that you use?
You know, secretly behind closed doors, they think everything I say makes sense down to the period.
Let's get into it.
Welcome back to Let's Get Into It podcast, hosted by me, Sloan. And today we are joined by Blaire White. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Let's get into it.
I know. I'm so excited that you're here because I've been watching you for years. You know, you're a fellow YouTuber. You do political commentary, and actually really inspired a lot of my commentary. Just your format, and yeah, I mean, well, you've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
And today you're also a birthday girl. So
oh
I
my
wanted to bring
gosh,
you
this is so sweet.
I was like nervous, like how are we gonna do this?
This
but
is so sweet,
yeah, I wanted to bring you a
guys.
birthday cake and sing happy birthday because why are you here?
Oh my
Like,
God, I'm gonna do an Instagram story.
Why are you here on your birthday? I don't know, but
I don't know. I just wanted to do like a work fun hybrid trip. So I was like, let me go to LA and like while I'm there, why not book some podcasts? And I'm a huge fan of you too as well.
Oh my gosh.
So like it just made all the sense in the world to come. So
well, let's go ahead and sing happy birthday to Blaire.
Thank you guys.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Blaire.
That's so sweet, you guys.
Happy birthday to you. Yes, now make a
I'm
wish.
30 though,
Yeah,
so I kind of want to die about that, but that's fine.
Death to your 20s.
I wish to. Oh my God, she's licking my hand. How sweet. I wish to age well and not be looking like I'm busted by my 31st birthday. That's what I wish for.
Yeah, and still relevant by 40.
So
right?
sweet. Thank you. You guys are so nice. I did not expect that at all.
Oh my gosh, when I saw it was your birthday, I was like, okay, why is she doing this charity work? Maybe she just like skip back or like what is going on here? So.
It's not though, because can I tell you, you're totally my, like when I'm high in bed, or sorry, when I'm
relaxing.
When I'm elevated in bed, like to watch and like just get all the scoop on all like the celebrity stuff, because I feel like because I do politics, I'm so sometimes detached from like celebrity culture and that sort of stuff. So you're my window back into that, so I can feel a part of the world.
It's so interesting to me because, like I said, I've watched you for so long. So the fact that you like see my content, I still can't like wrap my mind around it. But thank you to YouTube.
Did not know that, by the way, because I had followed you like about a week ago.
Yeah.
And you DM me, and I realized you had DM me before, and I was like, "Oh my God, we totally should have connected before." But I'm glad we have now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like, and I don't ever like DM people. So when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, that was like a different era." That's when I was like really fangirling. So I want to talk a little bit about your transition. Just like let's go ahead and jump into that because that's a big part of your identity and your stance on a lot of things. So
let's do it.
You talk about like the gender dysphoria.
Dysphoria.
Yeah. So when did you first start experiencing that?
I think that my earliest memories in life are very much, you know, clouded with gender dysphoria. So around like maybe 4 or 5. So it was like preschool, you know, it was kind of as soon as I entered the world and started understanding that there were these things called genders that was, you know, somewhat of a segregation between humans, the loose way to describe it. And I just kind of like from a really early age, like didn't feel comfortable being perceived as male. I didn't know what that was until I got older, and then I got the language to describe it.
Yeah.
And then once I hit around 19, I realized I got a transition. And then once I was 20, I did it.
So when you were in like middle school, high school, you weren't like dressing as a girl or living as a girl in any way?
I was doing sort of I was like a punk rock kid. So that was kind of, I feel like my way of expressing myself without actually like getting into it. So I did like a bunch of crazy hairstyles. People pull up the pictures all the time, like me with like a purple mullet and like a pink, like, yeah, it was like the emo scene.
Jeffree Star vibes.
Very much that. It was like that whole era of just like.
Blood on the dance floor.
Yeah. Hi.
It was the DC shoes.
Yeah, it was very much that. And it was a time where like gender didn't necessarily like it wasn't like so politicized. So the trans shit wasn't politicized, and like
Yeah.
expressing yourself differently wasn't like a political thing like it is now. So I was just having fun.
So at some point you described like this dysphoria as like a mental illness. So would you consider yourself then mentally ill because you are
For sure.
transgender? Yeah.
For sure.
So do you think there are transgender people who aren't mentally ill? Like, do you think there's trans people out there that exist that aren't mentally ill, or do you think it is like just generally a mental illness?
Well, I think that there are a lot of people who call themselves trans that are not.
Yeah.
So those people, perhaps they're not, or maybe they have some other things going on. But gender dysphoria itself, I believe is a mental illness. And I have to say I believe because it technically was taken out of the DSM-5 for political purposes. You know, people felt like it was sort of like making trans people look mentally
like
ill.
Discriminatory or something?
Yeah, they're like, it makes them look mentally ill or crazy. But my whole thing is like, I don't think people who have mental illness are bad people. I don't think they're like insane people. I don't think that they're, you know, I think that allowing us to just talk honestly about the fact that it is a mental disorder actually paints us with a much more vibrant picture and allows people to understand us.
Yeah.
Because if to the average person and to me, if I were to step outside of it and be like, okay, so you transition to a girl or a boy, whichever way, but you don't think that has anything to do with your brain or like anything chemically went wrong, then what is it?
Yeah.
If it's not that, then what is it? A fetish, a pastime, a hobby? Because that's not as valid as your brain really made you feel that way, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, nowadays everyone's mentally ill, right? Everyone's got mental illness.
Right.
It's crazy. I mean, it's like people expect to be coddled if they have like, you know, depression or anxiety. It's like, oh God, like welcome to the real world. But
And I don't fuck with that because it's like, can I swear on here?
oh yeah.
Okay. I don't fuck with that because the whole coddling thing, I feel like doesn't actually help anyone. Like, granted, it's always great to be emotionally supportive of people. And like, I need that from time to time. But what I don't need is someone telling me, you're not mentally ill. You just perceived yourself as a girl from a young age and then radically altered your body to embody it on the outside. But that doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. Yes, it does. Something was wrong. Something is wrong. That doesn't mean I can't live a great life. That doesn't mean that I'm a bad person or other trans people. It doesn't have to be about me. But if like anxiety, social anxiety, is considered a mental disorder, how is not perceiving your body as the opposite gender? Like that's a lot. You know?
Yeah, and I think that's like, actually the way you describe it. I think the initial statement, people were like, "Oh God, like you're attacking me," but it's also like it seems like you're seeking validation that you are transgender because it's a mental illness, and that's how you have kind of come to terms to accept it.
If it's not that, then what is it? I mean, it's something that exists in my brain, so that's mental. That's the word mental that describes the brain, and then it caused me distress, which means a disorder. This is disordered thinking. So to me, it just all makes all the sense in the world.
So I was at dinner with a friend the other day, and they were telling me that they listened to like a statement that you said where you described, I guess, like transgender women as still a category of man. So like when I look at you, or even like, you know, Gigi Gorgeous, Nikita Dragon, like there's nothing that's giving man. I feel like it doesn't, there's no, like if you were to define what a man is, if there is a definition out there, I mean, how can you explain that you would be like, I mean, does your partner call you boyfriend or call you husband? Like, why do you think that a trans woman fits into the male category?
Well, because they are male, you know, like I have a dick. So it's like, I mean, it doesn't have to mean that I embody all the characteristics of a man, because there are men who identify as men who do not embody all the characteristics of a man, or what we would think, you know. So for me, it was just about having like, that clip was from a very just like literal conversation I was having. It's like, I believe in, you know, if someone makes an honest transition, is living the life a certain way, there is never a reason to call them a man to their face, be rude, be like he. But like if we're having a talk about science, then there's like a scientific way to look at it, and then there's a social way. So for me, just because scientifically I'm a whole man doesn't mean, and biologically, that doesn't mean that socially it doesn't make more sense. This is the argument I had with Ben Shapiro. I had a debate with him on my channel. The only trans person to win a debate with Ben Shapiro, by the way. Let's get into that. And the debate was basically like, he was on a show talking about me, and he said, I wasn't there, and he said that Blaire's cool, but I would always call him a man in every scenario in real life. And I'm thinking, listen, if you and I went out to dinner and let's say I got there first and you had to tell the host at the front of the restaurant where your friend is. Are you going to say the man in the orange shirt, given that I'm wearing orange, or are you going to say the woman in the orange shirt? Yeah, you're not going to say he. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So there's social reasons to call someone male or female that are different than biology, the same way that like you look at an adopted parent, who's really going to be the asshole to be like, you're not really a parent.
Yeah.
Biologically speaking, you are not a parent. It's like, okay, well, you know, you're correct, but maybe just don't be a dick.
So like on your ID, your driver's license, it says
Female.
Yeah, female. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit about YouTube. So you've got over 230 million views on YouTube.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And like I was surprised because when I usually do like a little like deep dive on someone and look at their old videos, it's different kind of content. Like at least for me, I used to do like food reviews and stupid things like that before I found like my niche. But you kind of always been talking about like society and like political stances. So I mean that was like what, almost 8 years ago when you first started posting those videos. What compelled you to start doing that at like what, like 22, 23 years old?
23. And it was basically, I had just started my transition. And so I was experiencing a lot of new things. I was walking through the world, being perceived a bit different. And so suddenly I had different thoughts on feminism and gender issues and politics. I just became an adult. So I'm like, okay, having to, work for a living, and that might make me feel differently about capitalism and all these things. And I was also, I was born and raised in California, which is very, very liberal. And I was going to college and I realized that there's like no one around me, or at least on the outside, that thinks like me. They do, but they won't say it. There's like a clear, like, you cannot be a Republican in California.
For sure. Here, it's almost like it's the liberal paradise, essentially, which I'm not like one way or the other, but I definitely like can see here that there's no free thinking at all.
Yeah. And it's like, there are blue states and there are red states, and people are free to think however they want within those states and cities and whatever. But there's a certain level of like toxicity in California if you speak your mind on these things. So I kind of realized, well, I can't really say it on my college campus, otherwise I'm going to be failing classes. In fact, there was one class. Oh my God, this story. So I was in I forget what class, but either way, my professor made us do a BuzzFeed quiz as a whole like assignment. And it was a BuzzFeed quiz, how racist are you? Not like, are you racist? Not like, what are your nuanced thoughts on race? It was like, you go into it assuming every student is racist and you have to just answer it. And so instead of taking the actual BuzzFeed quiz, which I'm like, why is a college professor making us take a BuzzFeed quiz? I wrote a whole report about how it was stupid. And I was like, I reject this premise because you're starting me off as racist. And I'm not just going to identify as that because you want me to. And I failed that. So there was a lot of things on my college campus, basically.
Are your parents conservative?
No. My mom's a liberal. My dad's dead.
Oh no, rest in peace.
It's fine.
Were they, assuming he was around, were they accepting of your transition?
I transitioned a little bit after my dad died. And then my mom, she was always accepting of it. I think it was hard for her, like it would be hard for any family, in the sense of, people don't talk about this, but it feels like a loss for them a lot of times, and in many ways it is. You don't use the same name for the child anymore, and the world sees them differently. So I think it was hard, but she never, to her credit, let that show on the outside. Like, she was always supportive, very kind. So once I got a little older, I kind of opened up the space for her to be like, tell me how you really feel. Yeah. Like, you're a loving mother and you want me to be alive and happy and healthy, and that's fantastic. Thank you. So how'd you really feel? And she said, that she's happy that I'm happy, but it felt like a death in some ways. So that was real.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you kind of like hold on to some guilt when you hear those things? Because it's like, I guess you're essentially like causing that pain to that person. Does it make you regret any of the choices you've made?
No, because I think that there comes a time in everyone's life, and you can throw trans out of the equation. You can just whoever you are. There comes a time in everyone's life where you have to live for you. And, at the end of the day, should you still take people's feelings into account? Yes. And I think that every situation is different. So, for example, I see sometimes husbands leaving their entire families to go be women at 40, having had 4 kids and a wife who dedicated her entire life to you, and now she doesn't have any eggs left, and you just ruined her life. That's different. But, I was 19. I had the world ahead of me, and I was like, got to do it. So I don't regret it.
So when you started posting on YouTube, how long did it take for you to get some traction on there?
Shockingly, it was like really immediate. It was actually, I uploaded it like at night, my first video. And I thought 7 people would see it, And then I woke up the next day and it was posted on all these different websites and it had like 30,000 views like overnight, first YouTube video ever. So I was like, okay, that's like a thing.
Yeah.
Let me make another one. And then my life was never different from that first day.
Really? So at that point, did you have other career aspirations, or had you gone to college, or where were you when you first started posting?
I was in college when I first started posting for computer science. That was a flop. Don't know anything about computer science.
Yeah.
Was pretending I did because it was fun being like the only girl in a class of guys. But career aspirations, no, I didn't really know where I was going. I was going to college for a major I didn't really love, I think, which is kind of a common thing. I was going to figure it out as I went, and I figured it out. It was like, okay, I guess I'm going to talk politics.
So when you started to gain this online fame, how did your family and friends react?
It was weird.
Yeah.
So weird. You can probably relate to this.
I mean, I feel like nowadays everyone's an influencer. TikTok, it's
That's
so
true.
easy. Like, oh God, it's so annoying. But like back when you were doing it, it was kind of like still a little bit more like, at least, we were young, but it was still in the early days.
Yeah.
So, when you started making money from it though, was your mom supportive or?
Yeah. My mom was supportive from the jump, but it was more so friends that like were weird. Like I found out, this is an insane story. I found out that, cause I had a bunch of like liberal friends around me.
Yeah.
A few of them were doing little watch parties.
Oh, like making fun of you.
Talking hella shit.
Oh, that's like the Colleen with the Trisha nudes. Like they're all just laughing at it.
Yeah, that demon.
Oh,
That fucking demon.
Yeah. What do you think of Trisha?
I appreciate her presence. I like what she is in the YouTube world and in the media world. But she switched up on me. So
Oh, really? Like
yeah.
talking crap about you?
A little bit. We met and we did a little collab for my channel. And she asked me to fuck her on OnlyFans. I didn't do it. I'm not into that. And everything was great. And then I woke up one day and she had done some TikTok where she got a clip of me and Shane Dawson talking like way back in the day about non-binary people, saying something very much like very tame for considering what I talk about.
Yeah.
And she was attacking Shane in that, but I also felt a little bit like you're commenting on what we're both saying, so you're talking shit about me too. So I was like, whatever. But that's YouTube friendships for you.
Oh, for sure. And I think at that point Trisha was kind of in her Demi Lovato era.
Yeah. Shout out to Demi Lovato.
Yeah. She was a mess at the VMAs. I don't know if you watched that, but
No.
It was shaky. It wasn't giving what she used to give.
Well, a lot has happened to her since she used to give what she used to
Yeah,
give.
heart attacks, right? That's what I heard.
Yeah.
So besides
Heart
besides your friends like talking shit about you, when you first started posting, obviously like what you're saying wasn't the, happy, like this is my foundation, like try it out.
No.
Like it was all super like politically charged and
Yeah.
commentary. So did you first receive just a ton of hate initially? Like how did you?
No.
Or a lot of
Initially,
support?
the only people, you mean like the online world?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The online world initially was very, very unanimously positive because it was only reaching like-minded people at first. That's only showing up in their algorithms. It was like the right-wing people. And then once I started expanding and like reaching people outside of those algorithmic boundaries, suddenly it's like, ring, ring. Hi, this is the FBI. We have a few legitimate threats against your life and we're going to need to come talk to you really quick. Suddenly it was, people posting my address on Twitter and posting themselves holding pictures of guns. So it's been really crazy. I've been doxxed everywhere I've lived since starting this. But that's fine because I have hella guns too. So try me.
Yeah, no, I relate to that too. I mean, after I've had a few situations too, so I'm like,
Because you talk about powerful people as well.
Yeah, no. So if anyone comes to my house, they're not leaving. They won't be leaving.
Yeah, you're going to be
Leaving in a
losing a
body
limb.
bag. Yeah.
Part of you staying.
So speaking about YouTube a little bit, our first guest on this podcast was Eugenia Cooney. Thoughts on Eugenia Cooney?
I feel so bad for her.
Yeah, she's happy.
Okay. Well, there are people that are 600 pounds and happy as well. That doesn't mean that their body is happy.
Yeah.
So I just feel really bad for her because I feel like she is in the position where she kind of is, and I'm not saying this to be inflammatory because again, I've dealt with eating disorders, so I have like a huge amount of empathy for it. It is actual like hell having an eating disorder. She is sort of physically like walking, talking clickbait in the sense of, you see it and you're focused on it because it's so extreme, the point that she's gotten to. So that plays into like her making a living. And then, you know, you have a mom who's on camera talking about how she's healthy. And it's like, sometimes you can just look and see a lack of health, or if you have health, sometimes it's nuanced and shaky, like, oh, she's really thin. Okay, but there's really thin, and then there's someone needs to like put her somewhere.
So speaking of that, your friend Jacqueline Glenn, are you still friends? So she did put Eugenia somewhere. And I try to be extra nice to Eugenia because I was hard on her back in the day. So I try to be a friend there for her and check in on her and just be a person that she can confide in, because she's been fucked over by so many people, including like Jacqueline Glenn, like taking her to an escape room and then actually 5150ing her. What are your thoughts on that position? Like, do you think that was necessary?
I don't know like all the exact logistics of how the entire thing went down. And there's definitely two sides to every story. So it's not as if I can't understand how there would be a feeling of betrayal like from Eugenia. I can only speak to Jacqueline's heart, which I know, you know, because she had conversations with me before she did it, obviously, because, you know, all of us are public figures. We all know who's friends with who. So I know she's friends with her. And I'm like, what is up with this girl? Like, is she okay? And she would be in tears sometimes talking about it. Like, I have no idea what to do. There's no way to like have a gentle conversation with her. There's no way to have a harsh conversation with her, you know? So it's kind of like when being nice doesn't work and when being harsh and really putting her somewhere doesn't work, it's kind of like, it really is up to Eugenia, and you would hope up to her family.
Yeah.
But the mom thinks that's healthy. So
what's also weird to me too, because like from talking to Eugenia about it, she expresses that she wasn't that close to Jacqueline. So it just seems like, I mean, as a grown adult nowadays, like, you know, I can't imagine someone taking like my situation in their own hands, especially they're not even family members. We're barely friends. We're kind of like creator friends, you know, essentially. I mean, it's a little bit of an overstep in my opinion, but
I mean, I would swing.
Yeah.
If someone came up in my space talking about, we're going to put you in a different space. However, I just think like, I don't know how I would react if I had, and I don't know, maybe they weren't as close, maybe they were. I mean, that's another two-side thing. But for me, like, I think of the people who were closest to me in life. And if I saw one of them get to even close to that state, I would be like, you could hate me forever, but I'm going to step in some way. So it's a tough situation because Eugenia is an adult, you know. She has a very young demeanor. So sometimes I think people kind of treat her younger, but, you know, she's a grown adult. So it is in her hands to fix her life. And that's how it is with everyone, you know. I could have sat with my gender dysphoria and like been depressed my entire life, or I could have stepped it the fuck up and done something about it. But that's everyone's journey.
So talking a little bit more about living as a trans woman, how has dating been for you?
It's great. You know, people talk a lot about how it's like transphobic not to date trans people, and they paint this picture as if like no one wants to date trans people because it makes it look like, oh, you're just running to a bunch of transphobes. I can't speak to that experience because I've never had that issue. And I feel like that's maybe specific people's issues.
Yeah.
But it's great. You know, I feel like.
Have you had like so obviously you're engaged now to Joey. Have you had any other serious relationships?
Yeah, I've only had long-term relationships. I've never had like a hoe phase.
Yeah.
I'm definitely like a long-term person. But one of the things that I remember like before I transitioned was like, I see how hard it is. Like, and maybe you could speak to this, maybe you can't, maybe it's not your experience, but every like gay male I've interacted with talks about how hard it is to date in the gay community, how it's miserable, how you can't find love. And maybe that's another case of like, that's you and not me.
Yeah.
But I do remember thinking back like, ooh, how am I going to date if I'm not like trans? Like, I don't know. So as soon as I transitioned, it kind of all opened up for me.
Yeah. Did you meet him online?
Joey?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a fan.
Yeah. Oh, really? So what do you think? Because I don't know if I necessarily agree with this. What do you think about bringing, like, so you've got your platform, like over 1 million subscribers, and you've brought him on, right? Like you've shown him to people, like, why would you do that and like let people get your, like, have that part of your life, I guess?
Well, I have taken a big step back from that in recent years. So I don't think I've posted anything about him or my love life at all in like a couple years.
Yeah.
Because that was sort of like a, you know, that was like a baby influencer move where it was like, you know, I was 20, I think 4 when we met. And so right out the gate, I'm like, I do videos now this is part of my life. This is in my videos.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to come into my own and kind of understand that that has a lot of pitfalls. And I've never actually seen that work out for anyone. Like the other day, I was actually struggling to think about it. I was like, who has had a success story being in the public eye and making their relationship public? I'm thinking, I don't know, you got Kim and Kanye, J-Lo and Ben Affleck, you got even then influence, you got Tana Mojo and Jake Paul. No one.
Yeah.
No one.
I agree with you. And I think me getting into this older, you know, I went to school, I had a career in the government. I've like been in the real world. So I value like my boyfriends will never like be on my screen. And I think
Good for
what
you.
you're saying is like you're honest, you've retracted from like sharing him on social media because people are still curious if you're engaged. Like I saw
Yeah.
people questioning it online. At one point your engagement was called off because of drinking.
Yeah,
that correct?
yeah. We were having some issues, and like even going public about that was like everything has been such a process for me to grow and understand what's
Yeah.
for me and what's like for the world. So like looking back, you know, sharing the good and the bad should have always been just like a no, you know? Especially because people really feel like they have ownership over those things when you let them in on it, right? It's like people, especially as YouTubers, I think there's a different connection people have with us. You know, it's not like we're talking heads on TV and there's no emotion. It's like we're filming sometimes in our bedrooms, in our living rooms, and people are really in our houses with us. So I kind of learned more privacy with that. With
Yeah.
friends too.
I know, I totally agree. I mean, even with that's why I value what I do on YouTube because it's never really about me. It's about like the stories I cover.
Yeah.
So people get to like love me. And then once in a while I'll do a life update. It gets like, 500K views. I'm like, oh my gosh, like people are interested. But I talked about like my cheating experience and that blew up. And it was so annoying like for months after to go on dates and then have people come up at a restaurant and be like, oh, like, I'm so sorry about your ex cheating on you, blah, blah. And I'm like, the person's like, oh, so what do you do for work? Like, they don't even know I do YouTube. And it's like, it is like an extra, I learned a lesson just from that. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't really want to share anything about my love life because people can use it against you and they feel that connection, which is like, great. We love that. But also at the same time, when you're like out like on a date or just all out and about and having fun with my friends, I don't want to be like reminded.
Yeah. And it's weird because it's like a pity thing too. It's like, why are you giving me pity? Everyone goes through things. Everyone gets hurt and hurts other people, you know? But yeah, it's hard, you know? It's a different landscape doing YouTube than traditional media. And like, if you think about it in the really like long term of things, like being an influencer or having like an online presence, that is the new wave in terms of there will be influencers now for the rest of time. And that only was a thing in the past like decade. So we're like in the first batch of people in all of human history that are figuring this out, right? So, you know, I've had some missteps with what I've shared and what I haven't shared. Like I've talked way too openly about like my family issues. I've cried on camera. Sometimes I think about crying on camera. I'm like, wow, that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
But people also appreciate that too, though. I will
No,
say.
they definitely do. It's like, that's why they get all these views and then it sticks with people is because it is like a vulnerable place to be and like people can relate to that. And that's why I think people like YouTubers. It's a genuine connection. Has that affected, I don't know much about Joey, but he's not like a social media influencer type, right?
No.
So has that like affected his own life? Like you putting that stuff out there?
Yeah. Like lost jobs,
Oh no.
like been fired.
Is it true that he worked at RuPaul as a producer or something?
He was like a PA on that show. Yeah. Like
Interesting.
years ago. And I was like, that's interesting. But-
Clock him. He's like, oh, is he gay?
Hi. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I really, really hate.
Yeah. No,
About,
but I think that's like, it's also good though that it happened. You had to learn that lesson. Like it's part of your like experience on social media. I feel like it's nothing to regret, but when I saw it, I was just like, ooh, because I really much value my privacy. So
I mean, it's the idea that like what I do can negatively affect anyone in my life, right? So not just even him, like friends and whatever. It's like that stings. Like I had a friend, and it's the nature of politics. 'Cause it's like, especially I'm doing the most contentious genre of content.
yeah.
I had a friend who he lost out on some like reality show, like being a participant or something because he had posted a bunch with me and like publicly agreed with things I was saying. And it's like,
Is that your dwarf friend?
JC, my little friend.
Is that who you're talking about? That's like the only friend I feel like I see you posting.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just memorable. I don't know.
He's physically memorable and we look fun together. It's like a tranny and a little person walking around like, that's a show.
Yeah.
That's the show right there, JC. Why are you hiding? But yeah, so the idea that it negatively impacts anyone really like fucks with my head sometimes.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit.
Let's do it.
When you had HRH on your like podcast, like what did you guys just like? You just constantly agreed with each other. You're just like,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
I was like, oh, this is my twin flame. Yeah, it was so fun because also one of the things I hate about doing politics is I'm often like talking to like boring ass bitches and like just lame people who are those talking heads with no emotion. And it's like, it was fun to talk to someone who just talked real. And she's like, yeah, like homeless people are like the worst. And I'm like, you're opening me up to say even worse things that I usually say. And I appreciate that.
You're like trying to outdo each other.
Yeah, I was like, I'm more problematic than you, bitch. Calm down. But it was fun. It was fun. She's great. And I just like anyone who speaks real, you know, even if they're wrong, even if they're ignorant. I'm often wrong. I'm often ignorant. But people just need to speak real.
So
That's it.
on ignorance, do you think like, so you had a
On
video,
ignorance.
you had a video titled Trans. Is that
Yes.
correct? And so you spoke a little bit about like the woke culture and all of that.
Throwback.
So do you like get off on seeing people's reactions to your statements, your beliefs, but also the language that you use? Like, is that kind of part of like your whole shtick? Is that you like are this pretty girl who's like happens to be trans and you're just like spitting out this like, you know, I guess like someone would say it's like right-wing nonsense, but I mean like, you know, trans is like a pretty intense title.
Yeah. I think I was more so making the point that like the people I was reacting to in that video were, you know, it was less about them being trans and more so about them being like, because it was like, wow, this is so stupid what you're saying. Do I get off on it?
I mean, you must like the shock value. I mean, at least like speaking on HRH, I feel like I see this pretty girl and then she opens her mouth and she's like a sailor. So it's like, there's something that is enticing about it.
You know what's so crazy is like, I know everyone has like a heightened version of themselves that they put on for camera. And that's just like a thing of being in entertainment in any aspect. But mine is like not really heightened that much.
Yeah.
Going back to just speaking real, it's like, I kind of just do talk like that. And that's obviously one dimension of me when I'm talking about things that are heated and controversial. And I'm a very like loving, nice person to my friends in other contexts and family, whatever. But that's just how I talk. So it's like I could tone it down or I could just be who I am and people, you know, leave it or take it. And luckily people take it. Well, most people do.
Yeah. So do a lot of like the trans activists and the dolls like despise you?
The dolls.
Like Nikita, Gigi Gorgeous, like Eden. Are you friends with any of them?
Nikita and I follow each other and we've chatted a bit and she's cool.
Well, she's like a secret Republican. She like posted that one picture with a hat and then deleted it like a day after.
I remember that. Oh my God. Yeah, she is smart. Gigi, I met her one time in a club and she was like super yacked out. But we didn't talk much. It was more so just like, hey, fellow trans YouTuber, love it. And we just like were partying all night. And then
how about like trans activists?
Oh, trans activists. No, the activists hate me. Yeah. But a lot of the like regular trans women influencers and celebrities, they pretend to hate me.
Yeah.
Like they do the whole like pretend like that's whole. I just don't like that when they pretend to be something else. You know, secretly behind closed doors, they think everything I say makes sense down to the period, down to the letter. But publicly, they have a different image to sort of throw out there.
Well, I'd also say that I mean, you are one of the first trans people I've ever like seen like
really?
In the world, like online and in the world. So I feel like you've also been kind of like a role model to a lot of these girls because you're like beautiful and you know you're outspoken. So I think that there's
some of them take my name.
Yeah,
isn't that crazy? I've seen bitches with like the name Blaire and it's like they transitioned like 6 months ago and I'm like, and it has the E on the end. Okay.
Yeah, just becoming you.
I mean, shout out to that. But
so are you and Caitlyn Jenner friendly?
Friendly, yeah. We it's weird. I met her a few years ago. We went to dinner and we had like the best night ever. It was such a vibe. Like she gave me amazing advice, the kind of advice that only someone who's achieved as much as she has could give. And so I took that. And it was like a crazy night. We got like paparazzi'd outside. I saw how they lived, the Kardashians, and I'm like, my corneas couldn't take that. Like we walked out the restaurant and it was like, you think you see flashes when you're getting paparazzi'd that heavily? No, it's almost just like one light because all the lights are. But it was weird. It was like after that, she was like, I want to be in a video with you. And I was like, that's exciting. Like, you're just asked to be on my channel. I didn't even ask her. And then like she kind of ghosted me for all of eternity after that, minus a few like public tweets being nice and stuff. And I'm like, you should still come to my channel. Caitlin, where's the camera? Caitlin, come on.
She didn't hit on you, did she? Make moves on you?
No,
I don't know if she's into I think she's into other like trans girls.
her friend, her partner was there at dinner with us.
Yeah,
so that would have been crazy. And I would not have been receptive of that because I do like men.
Yeah, manly men.
Those kind.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about Dr. Phil, because you recorded an episode for Dr. Phil, and I don't think we ever got it.
Isn't that weird?
Isn't that weird? Right? He's a weird guy.
Yeah. Lots come out about him. Yeah, we went to the studio, filmed the whole thing, and it never came out. And I feel like I know that I'm not necessarily TV friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like part one. And then part two, I just feel like the shit I was saying was not like put it in two-way box and package it as like I'm a nuanced person too. As much as everyone thinks I'm like, ignorant or whatever, I have a lot of nuanced opinions. So I feel like because I wasn't like making a victim story out of being trans, that doesn't fit the mold of what kind of trans is on TV these days.
Yeah.
Especially at that time, a couple years ago. So it might be less about Dr. Phil himself and maybe more so about the entire team, for which, I mean, there's like 1 million people in that building.
Yeah.
Wow. That was crazy to see how many people really go into all that.
Was he nice to you?
Yeah,
Did he seem senile? He seemed aware?
He was present.
Halfway there? Halfway?
He was present for a exact amount of time.
Yeah.
The exact amount of time he needed to be, and then he wasn't present. Yeah.
It's like you've seen Joe Biden lately. He's been like walking off stage, and it's like it's giving Mitch McConnell with them just like
it's
losing
giving
it.
Where is Joe, because that may or may not be AI.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, who knows? It'd be really interesting to see. I mean, he's clearly going to run again, but that's insane because he's the Crypt Keeper.
So you're a Trump girly. Do you think like the whole Trump wave kind of gave you like an extra boost through social media?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're able to like ride that right wave.
Yeah, but what was crazy was I came on YouTube. It wasn't even like his campaign wasn't even like in the thick of it, really. Like it wasn't like for sure that was the person, it was still like not necessarily full Trump energy yet. And I wasn't even necessarily talking about hard politics at first. I moved to that later. But I definitely was a part of that energy and that whole movement. And I mean, it was wild. It was a wild time.
You do a lot of debates. Like personally, I feel like I'd be so stressed out doing those. Like, do you just like enjoy getting on and like arguing with people?
Yeah, let's fight.
Yeah.
Not you, but it's like, I love it because I don't like how often I have to sit here with, no one else in the room and I'm just talking to a camera and I'm almost feigning like I'm in a debate because, I mean, everyone hears the way I talk. I talk quite aggressive. I'm doing one on Saturday, a big one. The channel Jubilee? They do like the big, yeah, they're doing like a trans liberal versus trans conservative debate. So who knows how that's going to go?
Which side you'll be on?
Conservative, of course.
Yeah, of course, I know.
So who knows who they'll bring? I mean, I think that everyone who signed on to it is probably going to immediately know I'm coming. I mean, if you're doing a trans conservative, there's like 2 of us, and Caitlin's one. Then Caitlin's not coming, so.
Yeah. So, being a Trumpy girl, like
Trumpy girl.
I read at one point that you went to maybe like an anti-Trump rally wearing a hat, and then did someone like attack you or
yeah,
what
I got
happened
my ass
there?
beat.
By who?
On Hollywood Boulevard. Imagine the ghetto.
By they them?
It was definitely a they them. A few they thems. They jumped me.
It was they. It was them.
It was all of their personalities coming at me at once, and it was a lot. Yeah, I did a social experiment video where kind of as we talked about earlier, we talked about how you can't really be a Republican in California. So I was like, all right, well, this is my earlier, spunkier days of YouTube where I'm like just doing anything, putting anyone and everything on my channel. I'm like, let's walk through Hollywood with a Trump hat. And you know what's so crazy about that? I had no idea there was an anti-Trump rally happening. I initially went to WeHo and the gays didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
The gays were like, we're too drunk for this at brunch hour to handle this. We don't even care. Like, shout out to you. You're pretty. So I was like, all right, well, that was fun content, but wasn't necessarily the salacious Blaire White 2017 content we need? No. So I was like, let's go to Hollywood Boulevard. Didn't know there was a rally. We show up and there's like 1 million people on the street. And I'm like, what is this? And the amount of anger there was, it had to have been political. So I was like, let's go. And within, I would say, 5 minutes, I had my hat ripped off. Wow. I was wrestling on the ground for my hat with this like fat motherfucker. with like a pink pussy hat on. Just demented.
Was he there? Was Joey there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, obviously, like you stepped in, like diffused the situation at some point.
I got out of there luckily. I mean, if I had been alone, hello.
So you were trying to create that, like, what's that one bitch? Caitlyn Bennett, Liberty One, the pooper in her pants, that one?
Yeah.
So you're like going for that type of content.
Yeah, I gave her the blueprint basically.
Are you like friends with her?
No.
What happened to her? I feel like I don't see her anymore.
I think I don't know. I think she might have like had a baby and just
chilled out a little bit.
Yeah, which is probably good. But
yeah,
a lot happened. Like a bitch threw wine in my face. It was a lot.
Great content though, right?
It was, and it was such a crazy. Oh yeah, I remember I was bleeding too. I had like my whole nail ripped off and ripped my real one off too. I was like gushing blood. I was like, is this what YouTube is? Like I'm like just getting jumped for clout.
Yeah.
But it was, it was a different time in my career where I would do shit like that. Now, I've had a few too many things done. Don't know if I want to risk a few of those things.
Yeah. So do you know who Ollie London is?
Yeah.
Like Korean trans woman, now super conservative. So I had him on and I was expressing to him that I was concerned. I mean, I believe that you're a true conservative, but he changes identities every few months. So who really knows? But I was concerned that he's kind of being used as this puppet for the right wing to go onto Fox and to like spew out like whatever they really want to say. And, he doesn't look like them. So it gives him like them a little like extra content and a way to kind of like, a get you moment to the LGBT community. Do you ever feel like I think you enjoy going on these platforms, but do you ever think mentally they're just looking at you as like a puppet to just say these things so that they can like be like, oh, we got a trans girl saying all this. Like, what's the left going to say?
I think that what other people feel about me is not necessarily my business. So that's the first thing. I definitely know that that's how some of them feel. Mm-hmm. And there are certain shows that I will not go on because that is way too, I could feel that vibe already. Like I got a text this morning from Newsmax to have me on, which is like it's like the bootleg Fox News. Mm-hmm. And I did one interview on there where it was just kind of like, it was very much like that. And I'm like, no, like I'm 7 years into this, almost 8 years into this. I have worked so hard, and as much as people have this caricature of me that I think a certain way or act a certain way, if you actually watch my content, I very much am invested in having nuanced conversations. I am not interested in coming on here and bashing LGBT people. I'm interested in coming here and cleaning house within the LGBT movement and saying, here's where we're getting it fucked up, because we're at the point now where we've reached that acceptance where we have to accept that there's some things we're doing wrong as well. So from within, let's work on that. But if you're going to have me on just because you think I want to say, fuck trans people, it's not going to happen. Because I don't even feel that way. I genuinely don't.
So I know you're not a big fan of the Black Lives Matter movement because you put out a video titled 7 Reasons Why the Black Lives Matter Sucks.
Yes.
When it comes to like Candace Owens, she did like a big piece on this. And that's actually like when I started learning about like the BLM movement, how there were some like holes in it. I mean, I didn't watch the entire series, but what's your relationship with her?
A very interesting one.
Yeah, a good one, a great one.
It's so funny. People either know or they don't know. So in 2017, her and I did a very, very heated debate where she opened it calling me a man. It was very much like a very ugly moment. It was like an hour and a half of us really like going for blood.
Oh my gosh, I actually, now that you're saying that was like way back.
And people forget partly because she rebranded after that and changed her whole like persona. Like she was Red Pill Black was her stage name. Mm-hmm. So initially the video was titled, maybe they changed it, I don't know, Blaire White versus Red Pill Black. And then she became Candace Owens. So that kind of is forgotten about. But she actually shouted me out like not that long ago, like in a positive way.
So like, maybe you're chill.
Yeah, but I was like, it's just interesting. I guess time heals most wounds.
So like when she went off on, calling you a man and everything at first, were you offended by that? Or are you like, yeah, I am a man?
It wasn't offended. It was more so like, this is just so pathetic because we were there to debate something else. And for that to be the first thing out of your mouth, she set the stage was like, before we even start, I just want to say for everyone watching, just so they know. And it was like, so you're just poisoning the well because you think that all these right-wing people that are watching will immediately get tribal and just side with you because there's one trans person and one not. But I still won the debate, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, because both of you generally will, I would say, agree on most things.
Well, we were debating her very, very liberal past, which at the time, that past was only a few months prior, before her rebranded to a conservative. So at the time, I think the debate, if I remember correctly, was on like why she has this like shady like past like very recently. But that was so long ago too. But yeah, she did a whole thing about Black Lives Matter, which I think really informed people.
Yeah.
I kind of see Black Lives Matter the same way I see PETA. Great name, decent marketing, and if people are fooled just by the name of it, people for the ethical treatment of animals, who wouldn't want that? Look at this adorable dog. Who wouldn't want to treat this animal ethically? Black Lives Matter. Who wouldn't think Black Lives Matter? Yeah. But then you look at the actual actions of the group and the people that are high up and the stealing the money and, the fact that they just have gotten away with so much because of that platitude-ass name. That's really the issue.
So do you think, so you've described them as domestic terrorists at some point. So would you say that like the people running the group, they're the problem, but the message itself is something you believe in? Like, do you believe that like Black people have been like disparaged and they've been
100%? Yeah.
So you're like, and I don't think, do people call you racist? I'm sure they call you everything, but.
You can name anything. They've called me it, but yeah, that's the word they throw at really any influencer who isn't painting Black Lives Matter on their body and then doing a corny TikTok singing. Like, what's that one girl who would put like the fist on her cheek? And she's like, there's some TikTok.
Not on my feed.
but yeah, I think that the same way that like animals are abused and that doesn't mean that that's isolated from, the actions of PETA and stuff, or it is isolated from it. There's like realities to it. It's like, you look at also Black Lives Matter is poised as this group that really, really helps Black people. Meanwhile, all that funding, they were literally just stealing and buying mansions for themselves. Whereas, Trump actually did things for the Black community and it's completely ignored. So people are just very tribal. Yeah. People like he funded all these HBCUs and he did a lot of things for Chicago and but because he's Trump, fuck that. But because Black Lives Matter is on our side, love them, even though they could have used all those billions of dollars they were raising to actually improve the lives of Black people. So one could say you care about Black people more if you recognize that group is toxic.
Yeah. So would you say you're part of the LGBT community? Like, do you like being a representative of that community?
This is like,
or do you resent it? Because it seems like some people think that you like hate like the fact that you're trans so that you take it out on trans communities in general.
And that narrative is so crazy to me because I actually love that I'm trans. Like there is not one part of me that wakes up in the day and at any given hour of the day is like, oh my God, I'm trans. Like literally. Yeah. Like my life is amazing. I feel like the fact that I'm trans, if I'm just blunt, has opened way more doors than closed them for me. And you look at all the people who will say things like Blaire White hates herself for being trans. And then you look at their feed and it's like just misery. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, my life, I have a GoFundMe because my parents are kicking me out. And I'm like, whatever. And I'm like, but y'all are the ones that love the fact that you're trans. But like, I'm over here like making like my little Instagram fucking reels and shit. Yeah. And I'm like miserable. Okay. I prefer to think that I'm my best when I embrace individuals. So like meeting individuals from any community, like I can vibe with literally any type of person. I think that when you start to get into like big collectives, you start to think like, okay, well, how much do I really have in common with someone who is maybe like a bisexual male living in Tennessee as a trans woman who was born in California, you know? But I have my foot in so many different communities. Like, do I resent the community? No. Do I sometimes have harsh words for them? Yes, because I mean, we're giving kids sex changes, so there's some harsh words to be exchanged there. Yeah. But in general, you know, all my best friends in life have been gays and, you know, have tons of trans friends. So I love any and all individuals that I vibe with.
Awesome. Well, do you have anything you'd like to promote before we wrap up?
Oh my gosh.
Anything you're working on?
I'm working on so much, but just Google me and have fun. There's a lot of shit to sort through, a lot of things being said, a lot of lies you can believe, a lot of truths you can deny, and vice versa. Mix it up. Just Google me.
You're always putting content out there, and I love that because like the more, the merrier. Like we love our content creators. So thank you so much, Blaire, for coming on your fucking birthday. You for the cake. I know, like I can't believe you're here. So thank you for coming on. Yay. And everything will be listed below. So go and check out Blaire. And until next time, I'll see you in our new episode. Bye, guys.